3 years! That's how long we've been waiting for the Fokker. Through delays, development updates, and countless forum posts, this aircraft has become one of the most anticipated add-ons ever released for flight sim. But now, it's finally here. And JustFlight were kind enough to give me early access to the Fokker 100. And I'm going to tell you everything you need to know, including all of its features, how it performs, what I loved, and the things I really hope get fixed. So, after these years, was it actually worth the wait? Surprisingly, yeah. The moment you load into the aircraft, it is obvious that a lot of time went into the development. The exterior model is incredibly sharp, the textures look fantastic, and overall attention to detail is exactly what you'd expect from JustFlight. But the thing that genuinely surprised me wasn't just the visuals. A big part of it was the sounds, and I don't say this lightly, and neither does JustFlight, because they put out a half an hour long video just on the sounds. And this might be one of the best sounding aircraft in flight sim right now. It's not just the engines and it's not just the switches, but every single thing has a unique sound. And when you layer so many different sounds together, it comes together to bring this perfect sound package. But let's take a look around the aircraft, because there's a lot to see here. Now, depending on the variant of the aircraft, it very well may have built-in stairs, and they've done an amazing job at animating it. It doesn't look choppy or anything like that. It is so smooth. The animations on this aircraft alone are amazing. Another massive step is this has 2024 compatibility, and it's not just that it works in 2024, but also the walkaround mode works. Now, there's not a lot that we can do in the walkaround, but there's enough. You can open up the doors, lower the stairs, remove the chocks, and open up the baggage doors. And if that's not your thing, you can do it all through the EFB as well. Every aspect of this aircraft has been clearly modelled extremely well. From the individual turbine blades to the nose cone of the aircraft, everything looks flawless. But enough of the exterior, let's take a look inside. Now, not only has JustFlight done an incredible job at modelling the flight deck, but also the cabin and galley and every other aspect is modelled perfectly. But one, there's no toilets. 3 years of development and somehow nobody installed a toilet. And we know how important toilets are in flight sim. But jokes aside, let's take a look at the flight deck, because it's easily one of the highlights of the aircraft. The attention to detail goes so much further than just a standard cockpit. We've got perfectly modelled CRT displays, which is a big thing for this aircraft. Because of the time period, it's very mixed with old-fashioned and modern technology, which is what makes it so exciting to fly. And all the gauges are super crisp. It is such a beautiful flight deck to fly in. Now, I will say, I did find one issue, and it's on the bleed air panel. The word bleed is spelt bleed, which is really interesting to think about. I wonder how long this has been in the build for, because if it's been 3 years and nobody's noticed that one extra E, I don't know whether to laugh or be concerned. But remember, this isn't the final release. Bugs are to be expected, and hopefully this will be fixed before it is released. But enough of looking at it on the ground, let's actually take this thing off. And that's where things start to get a bit interesting. But before we get to that, let's hear this thing depart. Now, I need to talk to you about the handling, because this thing is an absolute joy to fly. And not in a way I expected. Most modern airlines feel relatively light and responsive. The Fokker doesn't. Every control input has a significant amount of weight behind it. You genuinely feel like you're moving a much larger aircraft through the sky. And it surprisingly feels really good. What's interesting though is, despite feeling really heavy in the controls, it's never really difficult to fly. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's really stable. Now, let's talk systems, and more specifically, at least first, the Autopilot, because this is where the Fokker really starts to show its character. Now, the Autopilot isn't by Airbus, but if you've ever flown an Airbus aircraft before, you'll immediately understand at least the basic philosophy here. A lot of the controls use a similar push and pull design, so if you want to select a heading, all you do is dial it in, then pull back the knob. Simple and logical. And it's really intuitive once you understand it. especially if you've flown Airbus before. Which brings me back to an important thing. This aircraft comes from a really interesting period in time. The aircrafts were just becoming modern. They weren't a fully modern jet yet. You've got an FMS system and it works really well, but compared to most modern airliners, it's extremely basic. At the same time, you've got these wonderful CRT displays sitting in front of you that's a weird mix of old and new technology. And honestly, it's one of my favourite eras of aviation. It's the same reason I love the 737 Classic so much. And that's important to note because not everything in this aircraft is super basic. Compared to an Airbus, this is a lot of hands-on flying. If you want to fly an ILS approach, you have to set the course and ILS frequency manually. There's none of this Airbus walking you through the park. But don't get me wrong, it's not a complicated or hard aircraft to fly. There's just a lot more to it than your modern aircraft. Which brings me to the most important thing for me in an add-on. Let's talk about the usability. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good the sounds are or how pretty the cockpit is. If it's a pain to fly, then nobody's really going to use it. The good news? It isn't. Once you understand the basic flow of this aircraft, and I mean basic, it is surprisingly easy to jump in and fly. In fact, I'd go in to say it's probably one of the more approachable classic airliners currently available in the flight sim. And if you're stressing about it, don't, because even in the EFB, there are quick start options. So if you want to quickly start it up to take off, then it literally is just a press of a button. But honestly, after a couple of flights, this is easier than the A320 or the 737 in my opinion, which is huge. And sticking with usability, one area that's been improved is the SimBrief flight planning. It is so straightforward. You can easily load your route directly into the FMS. All you need to do is to go into the init page and under the company route, just type in your flight plan. So if this is from Melbourne to Sydney, then you type in YMML YSSY. No spaces, no dashes, all is one word, and it'll just import, as simple as that. On top of that, weight importing is also supported, which means you can quickly load your aircraft and send all the fuel and payload information directly to the takeoff calculator. And from the takeoff calculator, you can send that information directly to the FMS, which means all of this becomes super easy and simple. Which, in my opinion, when you're simulating an aircraft this deep, it isn't just a feature anymore, but it's kind of an expectation, because it stops you from just quickly jumping in and flying the aircraft, which is something a lot of add-ons struggle with. But thankfully, JustFlight has included them. But it isn't all good with the EFB, because there was one thing I found a little disappointing, and that's pretty much the rest of the EFB. It's still using the old design from JustFlight. Now, don't get me wrong, it does work. Everything you need is there, but visually it is very outdated compared to what most EFBs are today. And even more so compared to the takeoff data page and some of the other pages, the EFB just makes it feel even more old. Because those pages are brand new, they're modern, they've got a good UI, but the rest of the pages are all old. So yeah, that's a bit of a letdown. And finally, GSX users can relax because the aircraft does include a GSX profile out of the box. And simply, it just works. But before we get to the final verdict, let's talk about performance, because I already know you're typing it in the comments. The good news? You probably won't need a NASA supercomputer to run this thing. But the bad news, it isn't exactly lightweight either. Now, on my system, I normally fly in 4K using TAA. With the Fokker, particularly using the 8K liveries, I found myself dropping to 1440p with DLSS to maintain at least 60 FPS. That's not terrible, but it's also not mind-blowing. I'd say the performance is roughly in the same ballpark as the Phoenix, I guess. Maybe slightly better, maybe slightly worse. It really depends on your setup. Either way, it's perfectly usable, but we've got 8K liveries here, and it's an incredibly detailed aircraft. Alright, now let's try and answer probably the biggest question that you clicked on for this video. When is it coming out? Honestly, I'm not totally sure. I suspect JustFlight probably doesn't want to commit to a date either. History has taught us all that release dates and Fokkers don't exactly have the best relationships. And what I can say is that content creators now have access. The aircraft is clearly getting very close to the finish line, and there's still a few things that are being polished. But from what I've seen and what I've experienced, we're very close. As for pricing, I don't have an official confirmation yet, but from what I understand, there will likely be 3 options: the Fokker 70, the Fokker 100, or a bundle containing both aircraft, which makes a lot of sense. So, after 3 years, is the Just Flight Fokker actually worth your money? Well, we need to figure out the price first, and I don't have that, so we'll have to wait till the next video. But if you do have any questions, drop them down below in the comments or join my Discord where I can answer them directly to you by showing you the aircraft itself. But a huge thanks to JustFlight for sending this over for me to check out. We'll be doing another video on this where we take a better look at it once it's actually released. But at the moment, this is just kind of a first quick impressions on a preview build. But don't forget to hit like, get subscribed, and until next time, I'll catch you then.